Good afternoon, everybody. Esteemed panelists, a warm welcome. All the participants, college faculty, principals, everybody who's attending this webinar, a very warm welcome to all of you from Telangana Academy for Skill and Knowledge. As you all know, TASK is a not-for-profit organization established by the government primarily to enhance the employability of the youth. So we are in the business of making youth more employable by enhancing their skills, both technical and non-technical, so that when they graduate from college, they are able to get jobs that are suitable for their aptitudes and for their education levels. We also felt that in the current situation, in the pandemic situation that we are facing, the conditions are so unprecedented. We've been kind of thrown into this situation all of a sudden. There are a lot of uncertainties about how the future is going to be, especially for fresh graduates. So, keeping this in mind, in order to bring more clarity on the employment scenario, help students understand how to prepare themselves to face these unprecedented times, we have started this series called the Career Talk series. This is the sixth webinar we are doing in this series. We started with the IT sector, then we did aerospace, manufacturing, electronics manufacturing, pharma, life sciences, and today we are here with the BFSI sector. For the students of commerce, finance, management, and even some students of the IT, this is a sector which has always generated a lot of potential employment opportunities. Today we have a power-packed panel. Our CEO Shrikant sir will introduce you to them. Our panelists today are going to throw light on how youth can prepare themselves to face this industry and how the industry itself is going to change over the next few months. Thank you again for being a part of it. I hope this is going to be an extremely enlightening session for you. We are doing this in partnership with FICCI. We thank FICCI for partnering with us on this. Shrikant sir, over to you.
Thank you, Shruti. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all the principals, all the TPOs, all the students from these colleges and to my esteemed panel. I think banking has changed. In fact, when I got involved with the BFSI sector itself, I was into training of bankers and potential bankers. And at that time, about a decade ago, only 15% of India was banking. And today, if you look at it, the things have changed quite a lot. Thanks to the pandemic, I would only say thanks because every crisis should be used as an opportunity and actually things should happen according to it. I think what pandemic has actually done is it has accelerated the growth. It has accelerated the pace of things to come. We were already talking about IR 4.0 and a lot of automation, etc., was already on the cards. A lot of banks itself and a lot of organizations had started using bots and automation was being thrown in. But what the pandemic has actually done is accelerated the pace of it. I'm extremely happy and pleased today that we have a very, very diverse panel with us today. We have people from the actual banking itself. We have people who are entrepreneurs and startups in Fintech. We have people who would give us a perspective. We have people who are running one of the largest back office of various financial organizations, as well as we have the academy head for the stock exchange. So as you can see, very diverse panel. And I'm sure we'll have some very, very interesting discussions happening. So let me quickly introduce the panel in no particular order per se, but we have Mr. Gopal Krishnan Tadas, who was the executive director of IDBI. He has just taken voluntary retirement recently. We have Mr. Sridhar Chanduri, who is the vice president from Wells Fargo. We have Mr. Satish Vadlamani, who is vice president of Genpact. We have Mr. KK Jain, who is a startup of InsurePay, a fintech organization. Mr. Abhilash Mishra, who is the CEO of National Stock Exchange Academy. And we have our own Mr. Praveen, who is the director of BFSI, Government of Telangana. So without any further ado, I think what we have seen and what people have been talking about is that it is expected that post-pandemic, three things are going to grow. The first one is digital commerce or digital transactions, etc. Second is medtech, or all that area which is into medtech, etc. And third is, of course, automation. So we wanted to understand from you, and probably I will start with you, Mr. Tadas, in case you can help us introduce yourself, your organization, and impact of COVID, and also talk about what you expect to the future of banking uh, in India. We could start with you, and then we'll go across the table.
Okay, Mr. Shrikant, good afternoon to you and all the panelists and others from colleges, principals, students who are present on this occasion. Uh, I think it is very appropriate that you have organized this get together through, of course, the webinar, so that we understand the problems that are being faced by the especially the young generation who are desirous of getting into the career path, but are faced with uncertainty and they have doubts as to which way to go. Let me begin with introducing myself. I started my career with a research organization in New Delhi. I worked initially on international trade and development for almost about 10 years. And subsequently, I shifted, I changed my career. I joined IDBI, the then IDBI, which was called a Development Finance Institution, and later on, of course, became a commercial bank in the year 2004. I joined as a deputy general manager in 1995, and I have almost served the bank for now 25 years. During my 25 years of career, I have worked in almost all the major departments of the bank. To name a few, I have worked in the research and planning department. I have worked in the credit department. I have worked in the project appraisal department. I have worked in risk management, and I was also MD and CEO of a primary dealer subsidiary of IDBI Bank, now called as IDBI Guilds, which of course is now folded up and merged with IDBI Bank. Uh, you know, uh, when I took my voluntary retirement, I was heading HR of the IDBI Bank. I was heading credit department. I was heading risk department, and towards the end of my career in the bank, I was heading HR department. So what I want to say is, when one joins a bank, especially in the public sector banks, you get an opportunity to work in various departments which may not necessarily be linked to what you have studied in colleges and institutions. You may be an economist, you may be a commerce graduate, you may be even a literature student, or you may be, tech student. But when you join a bank in a general pool, there are of course specialist categories where you are absorbed at a little higher level at a lateral entry category. But I'm not talking of the lateral entry category here. But when you join in the general pool, you tend to work in various departments, because in the public sector banks you have what is called as rotation of jobs. Every 2-3 years, you'll be going through various functions of the bank, so that the objective is that as you grow and climb the career ladder in the bank, by the time you reach a certain level of senior management, you would almost be knowing every function of the bank, so that when you are a senior management level and you have to decide on various aspects, you are familiar with all the aspects of the banking, so that you are not at a loss to understand certain things which may come in the way of taking a decision. So that is the whole objective behind why when people join bank, they are given different responsibilities at different points of time. And I think it is a good practice, I would say. Although different banks have different organization structures, and even in the public sector banks also, they have been adopting different structures, organization structures, in the last over a decade. In fact, even IDBI Bank, from where I come from, we were a development finance institution, and we undertook appraisal and project financing of large manufacturing and infrastructure projects. And we worked in the appraisal, we worked in the sanction, we worked in the pre-disbursement, we worked in the post-disbursement, we worked in the credit administration, and subsequently when it was converted into a bank, I worked in the treasury and other related functions of the bank. So it is desirable that we understand all aspects of banking, because banking is a dynamic and a changing activity. What was relevant 10 years ago is no more relevant today. For instance, we have seen that so many fintech companies have emerged. Now, unless you know the banking functions and the transaction based modules, you will not be able to work in fintech companies, because fintech companies are basically digitally enabled companies wherein you will be working through and interfacing with the technologies to facilitate ease of transactions to the customers. So it is all the more important for all the students who are desirous of joining banking. Not only banking, even other non-banking financial sectors are like non-banking finance companies are there, mutual funds are there, the fintech are there. Uh, so when you join them, you must understand the basic aspects of bank. What is bank about? What is non-banking finance company about? What are they entitled to do under RBI Regulation Act? RBI guidelines. What are they, so far as banks are concerned, so far as NBFCs are concerned. So if you understand these basic things when you are studying in colleges, and also when you are undergoing some skill development programs, I think you should have some basic knowledge about what the banking is about, what is the finance activity about, so that when you join a job, things are not new to you. Now the question is, given the pandemic of corona impact we are going through, I understand that there are doubts, there are uncertainties about what's going to happen to all of us. You are all aspirant candidates, and you want to pursue your career in banking and financial sector, and of course in many other areas. Now, when the uncertainties are there, and when you are, on the verge of entering the foray into different careers, definitely, it poses challenges, and also, it increases worries. But I would say that these are all, yes, there are uncertainties. We must accept the fact as they are, and we should not run away from the realities. But it doesn't mean that there are no opportunities, or there are not going to be opportunities. There are opportunities, there are going to be opportunities. The uncertain phase, I would say, is only short term, maybe of 5 to 6 months time. In fact, I have gone through and discussed with many of my friends in banks and other non-banking finance companies. What I observe is that, yes, so far as new or fresh recruitment is concerned, there are certain issues, but it is not that they have stalled or they are not going to take new, freshers, new candidates. Maybe it may take some time, but if you see at a lateral level, many banks and non-banking finance companies are recruiting, increasingly, because they need people with experience who can handle the crisis situation in a better way. So yes, I agree. You are all new, and you are, to join the career, and yes, you would not be having experience, so you would not be eligible for this lateral entry. But what I would suggest is that you should use this time to further upgrade your skills, which are in demand in the banking and non-banking financial services companies. Like as of course other panelists are there who are experts in the technology aspect. Even within the bank where I worked, increasingly we are finding that the transactions are more and more driven by the digital platforms, the technology platforms, and more and more analytical tools are applied. So I would suggest that you should enable yourself by upgrading your skills in technology based banking platforms and analytical tools, like you have Python, you have R, and you have SAS packages and all. So I think you utilize this time which is available, maybe 3 to 4 months time, to get some knowledge in these areas which are complementary to the functioning of the banks and financial services companies. At this stage, I stop here, and maybe if you have any questions, we can take them up subsequently. Thank you.
Um, sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Tada. That has been wonderful. In fact, the way you described the CASA, current account, saving account, kind of banking and other things, etc., and the impact and how it will change has been good. And thank you very much for that. I would also request all the students, the TPOs and the principals, that please start typing your questions in the question answer box, so that once our discussions end, we will be taking up those questions. So please start typing in your questions over there. I would also like take this opportunity to compliment all the people here in the panel who are representing the banking industry. I think we all got just 3 hours notice to move from working in offices to working from home. And I must compliment that the banking industry was one such area where people, would have rushed towards the ATMs to withdraw money and things like that. But banking industry really lived up to its reputation. I don't know how they managed it, but not even one day banks were offline or closed. So compliments to all of you. And that brings me towards the technology part of banking. So let me ask Mr. Sridhar Chanduri, who is the center head and the CTO for Wells Fargo, introduce himself, his organization, again, impact and future gazing. Sridhar, over to you.
Thank you, Shrikant. It's really wonderful to hear Mr. Gopal Krishna talk about his experience and how he went through. I really appreciate all the principals, the students, to be part of this forum, and I'm eager to hear from the other panelists as well. So before I go further and talk about myself, I want to talk a bit about the bank that I work for. So Wells Fargo is, for those who don't know, is a US bank. We are a 168-year-old bank, and believe it or not, 1852 is when it all got founded. Currently, we have close to 70 million customers, 25 plus million online customers, and we have close to 260,000 employees. In addition to that, we as a bank, we actually have an annual deposits of close to $1.3 trillion. And we give loans to the order of close to $1 trillion, I would say. So a fairly large bank. We are into wealth investment. We are into wholesale and retail lending. We are into capital markets, pretty much mutual funds, and all the whole gamut of what a bank would get into. And to answer your question and the challenge that the students are facing, I probably want to give a bit of a background about my own career. I started way back in '94 after my master's in structural engineering. So this is a great example, I would say, for those who feel uncomfortable about not being a computer science or an information technology graduate. So I was graduating in structural engineering. That was the time when the economy was opening up. And I got an opportunity to develop software for structural engineering. That's how I started. TCS, joined TCS, and I ended up working for software development through TCS. I continued to do my engineering system software development, typically Java and C kind of programming languages. I worked for Siemens in '99 in US for close to 8 years. I was doing product development, shifted from services with TCS to a product development organization, worked on slightly, general software, bill of materials, supply chain software, and so on and so forth. In 2006, I decided to move back to India and I worked for CSC, and that's when I got introduced to the BFSI world. I used to manage the Zurich Financial Services, both the commercial and retail insurance delivery. That was a major client we had. In 2011, I joined Wells Fargo. So when I joined Wells Fargo, we had the situation where internet was booming and Wells Fargo was kind of in the middle of the story. And then we had contact center and traditional applications. So we had to blend the culture together and make it unique as a differentiation for our customers as well. So, ended up with corporate functions in 2015. I do manage HR systems, supply chain, risk and finance, systems, and also data. So it's a kind of a federated group of portfolio of applications, if you will. And the reason I called out all this is if you look at the journey that at least I had, it was quite varied. As a structural engineer, who would have thought that I would get into software? I wrote software for engineering systems, and then I moved into insurance side of the delivery, software development, and then into pure banking, community banking. And now into corporate functions. Like Mr. Gopal Krishna said, he was into credit, into finance, risk, and HR. I had this gamut of or spread of exposure as well. One thing I really want to call out and probably get onto the questions at a later point of time is, typically there is this challenge all the time about, okay, what are those skills that any organization would look for when they want to hire graduates? Whether it's pre-COVID or not, I don't think, the answer is different. Typically, we look for, capabilities around logical reasoning and analytical skills. I'm sure a lot of the students are engaged and they are prepping themselves for logical reasoning and analytical skills. I do visit some of the institutions like Narsi Monji, Aurora group of institutions, and talk about what is expected of them. But specific to BFSI, I would say you really need to know how to code. And now it's not like you have to code in a specific, you should know about specific languages. Whatever language you kind of learned in your college, you really need to know well. That's important for BFSI. The reason being, once you learn a language, you understand the concepts, then it's much easier to move around to the emerging languages as well. So the core languages like C, Java, C++ definitely help you get more foundation. That's something you would need to focus on. And most importantly, being an engineer by degree is not enough, but an engineering mindset is equally important. So what I really mean by that is, you should have system level thinking. We should be looking beyond the sequence of things given for us to deliver. We should be able to work under, constraints, and we also should have, alternate ideas, fallback plans on, how things can be done differently, right? So such kind of an engineering mindset would definitely help differentiate yourself and prosper. So yeah, I know it's kind of a situation where it's more of a downturn now in terms of the economy and how much is being invested into the IT world. But as mentioned earlier, there is definitely investment in digital. There is investment in automation. There is investment in trying to go for emerging technologies, including big data, AI, ML kind of engagements. So the focus should shift from the traditional approach of learning things to more a e-platform kind of learning with emerging technologies. So that's where I would put it for now, and happy to take any questions as we move forward. Shruti, Shrikant, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. I keep on doing that many times. Thanks for pointing it out. Thank you very much, Sridhar. That was wonderful. And I think this was quite an eye opener for everyone. Such an old bank, and half of India's economy. um you have accounts for that. So phenomenal. So great. And probably we will come to some more questions later on. Now moving on to Mr. Satish Vadlamani, who is the Vice President, Infrastructure and Facilities, Genpact. Um, Satish, would like you to introduce yourself. Organization Genpact, of course. Let me also acknowledge Genpact because in my previous avatar, when I was the CEO of NASCOM Foundation, we worked very closely with Genpact in the project Reach Higher, as we had called it, to ensure that the underserved people are trained in journal accounting, financial accounting, voice-based and non-voice CRM for the banking industry. So over to you, Satish.
Thank you, Srikanti, and very good afternoon to all the principals, the faculty, the TPO students, guests, and esteemed panelists on this webinar. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be here. And very importantly, first of all, I think Srikant has mentioned about it. So, but still, I would like to catch up on the organization. Genpact is a global leader in transforming and running BPM operations, and I think most of you would know. But yes, one of the way we are today as an organization have been experting around business transformations through processes for almost from 70 delivery centers spread across 25 countries. We also currently manage close to 7,500 processes in 34 languages to our 700 plus clients in multiple industry verticals, primarily such as the financial services, insurance, life sciences, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, customer package, and high tech in the areas of high tech. So that's the broad portfolio that we manage, and our end-to-end service obviously offerings will include industry-specific offerings across multiple consumer goods and industrial. And BFSI largely is our core strength, and that's a core F&A and core F&A consulting, advanced F&A, finance and accounting, this and master data management. That is something which we've been expertised over years of, we have been in. Now, most importantly, the risk management services, enterprise technology, end user computing, infrastructure, business intelligence, contact services, collections, customer service, re-engineering, market and social media are the other aspects that we really expertise on. So this is broadly about Genpact, what we do. And BFSI has been a larger part of our service offerings. And today, as we talk, we are like, we deliver to a lot of Fortune 500 companies and banks across US. And Sudhir, my best friend out here, I think they are one of our clients and we do serve them as well. So Wells Fargo is one of our clients. So again, now this is something which we have been across in India and across the globe we have been supporting on. To come back to, I'll come back to myself. So 27 plus years of experience. I started with my career with hospitality industries. I spent around 12 years in hospitality industry with various leading chains. And then thereafter joined GE in the year 2000. That's when in Hyderabad, there was the first time in 1997 when it was GE, then GE Jekis, that is because, we started our footprint in Hyderabad. Thereafter, the whole divestiture happened between GE and Jekis and Genpact, and then we became global. So as in when we became global, then that's when I started setting up sites in various cities. And this is started with Hyderabad, and my role was primarily responsible for design, build, and operate Genpact offices across India. So I am rightly the country head for India infrastructure and logistics. We're managing close to 28 offices with around close to 5 million square feet of office space across India in 10 cities with 60,000 employee base. Primarily with expertise around real estate, office real estate, and talking about risk and parameters, business continuity, physical security, integration, governance, etc. That's the key operations that I manage and I'm accountable for. Coming to the topic where we are, I think, see, the world is facing an unprecedented crisis in form of pandemic, and which we all know. But there are two different things that are going to happen. What is changing right now, what we have not seen is the scale of economics that are changing, the policy levels that are going to change. That is pre-COVID, before what we call before COVID and after COVID. There is complexity, there is ambiguity in an action. There's a market uncertain economic outlook. Environment scenario is different, deployment scenario is different. But having said that, there are a lot of positives. What has not changed and some of the core principles that will continue to be is the delivering great customer outcomes. Focus on employees' experience and robust infrastructure is something which will continue to be there. Now, for this industry per se has really been doing good. There's nothing wrong with this industry, Bfsi. The banking has taken a little bit, the volumes have dipped, but otherwise, we have seen that the bank, this industry has not really taken a hit. Number two, insurance has grown. Insurance is growing. So the story is good, nothing to be worried about. And that's the view. But what is neat of the hour? One of the things that we need to look at is, as rightly mentioned by Gopal Krishna Garu and Sudhir Garu, and I think it is how we immediately change ourselves, how agile are we, how adaptable we are to the current scenarios and circumstances. Digital technology, automation, the working conditions that are working, there's going to be way forward with all this work from home culture that is coming in. Which is actually pushed in to us, pushed into our thought. Actually, there is a small thing that I would like to say. There's a question here saying that who has driven work from home culture in organizations? A, the CFO, B, the CEO, and D, C is like, the corona. So the people who are not taking it as corona, So we are pushed to that kind of a situation. So the focus is clearly on automation and digital and technology and etc. So my one message to the students here, for the freshers, need not worry. You have to really put on your efforts on improving your skills, and these skills will be around technology. And one of those things, as rightly mentioned, it's about learning Java, C++, or about Python or Oracle, or you call about SAS. I think these are something which are really there in the market. And I think these are something that you need to explore. Other than that, some of the transactional things that are there, I think which can be, which I think with the basic skill sets are still available in the market, which will still work to get you those kind of jobs that you would like to do. So that's where I want to just hold myself, and then as and when the questions come forward, and then we would be able to take it forward.
Thank you, Satish. That was wonderful. And absolutely agree with you. Typically, when we spoke about, business continuity was one of the biggest challenge, and how banking industry has actually done it. In fact, a lot of manufacturing organizations and banking has done it really well. Normally, when a pandemic happens, always the stock exchanges take a beating. So let me move on to you, Abhilash. If you could introduce yourself, organizations, because stock exchange and the academy, and also impact of COVID and future crystal ball gazing.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be part of the proceedings today, and thank you for inviting me, Shrikant, and also such a pleasure to meet all the other eminent panelists. Congratulations to Task and Fiki for creating this series so as to help graduates and incoming students manage their careers successfully. Let me start off by introducing about our business. Of course, you know about National Stock Exchange. We were set up 25 years back on the basic founding principles of transparency, trust, and technology. So I am proud to say that we were the first fintech company in India before fintech became a buzzword. We were an automated stock exchange talking about time price matching, and automated trading systems and scriptless trading way back 25 years back, and which were very innovative for the industry at that point in time. That has brought us to be the leading exchange in the country and the largest exchange in terms of derivative contract volume worldwide as of recently. When we started the exchange, our ambition was to provide financial and access to capital markets for investors and bring the transparency and trust back to the ecosystem, and also create a new generation of member brokers whose primary and fiduciary responsibility was for the investors' safeguard of interest. And as such, it was but imperative that we start educating them on financial learning and financial literacy. Hence, we started creating our own training programs 25 years back. The fact that we were not an academic institution, but still these programs are designed with the help of academic experts and the subject matter experts within and outside the organization. They were very practical oriented and immediately applicable to the marketplace. They became very successful, and we in fact became a factor credentializing entity for the Bfsi and capital market space 20 years back. Applications called NCFM, NSE Certified Financial Market Professionals, became industry standard. I'm very proud to say that we have impacted more than 2 million lives in the professional learning space in BFSI in the last 20 odd years. We also work with state boards and also Central Board of Education on matters of financial learning, and our curriculum is plugged into class 10th and 12th in various education boards as an optional subject for students. We also work with higher education institutions where some of our content and courses are used by students in undergrad and graduate at the MBA, BBA, BCom, and MCom level as parallel track to get practical, employable, market-related skills in the banking, capital, and financial areas. So to say that another 5.1 million of lives we have impacted through our school and college interventions in last several years. We recently brought in an AI-enabled learning experience platform so as to democratize access to financial learning. And this is called NSE Knowledge Hub. The endeavor is to bring all the digital content through an intelligent operating system for learners, both at the higher education as well as the professional learning space also. We are an integral part of NSE. This used to be an internal unit. 3 years back, it became a separate company. We are proud to say that call ourselves as NSE as the National Prosperity Exchange. We've been instrumental in bringing prosperity to the citizens of this country by access to capital markets. If we all believe in the fact that we all work for financial freedom in life, then the stock exchange provides that inclusion of financial access. And NSE Academy provides the first step, which is financial learning. So we create our value proposition. Financial learning leads to financial access and inclusion, and financial access and inclusion leads to financial. So that's the ethos and the vision that we work with. We are a mission-driven organization. Our mission and vision is to promote financial learning as a necessary life skill. Just to add on to that point of life skills, in the 2008 report by World Economic Forum on 21st century skills, you'll be very pleasantly surprised that of the top 6 foundation skills, financial literacy is amongst the top 6 skills. So literacy, numeracy, scientific literacy, ICT, which is information and technology, culture and civic literacy. It also mentions financial literacy. While we all talk technical aspects of learning, it is but important to understand also part of the softer aspects and also the learning, which is an important skill as we step into the future. And this is very, very pertinent for the current audience on this discussion today, who are looking at their first job or their career in next couple of years. About me, I'm very happy to know that Satish comes from a hotel background. So when Mr. Chanduri mentioned about what's a engineer doing in a business like this, Satish, I am also hotelier by my undergrad. So it's not surprising what's a hotelier doing in an education business. And having gone through an entire learning of financial services, so I started my career in hotels. My undergrad is hotel management. Went on to do a mid-career MBA at Chicago Booth at University of Chicago in Chicago many years back. But after hotels, I moved into financial services way back when NBFC world was opening up in early 90s. So joined the Aditya Birla Group Financial Services, worked across many functions, both on the corporate and retail side, at branch and HO level, in sales, operations, and other roles. Then moved to mutual fund business, when mutual fund business was very nascent in the Indian ecosystem in 97, 98 with Aditya Birla Group as part of the Birla Capital joint venture, which became Birla Sun Life. And then moved to ICICI Bank briefly on the mortgages business. and eventually settled with Standard Chartered Bank, again on the mutual fund and asset management business. Before moving to academics, 6 years back, my last assignment was AXA in the asset management business. Again, variety of roles, sales, business development, strategy. I also became the EA to the CEO at a transition point in time, was part of two integration projects when we were selling off our businesses to external joint venture partners, being part of strategy, be part of sales, operations. So probably I think a very interesting journey so far, being very fortunate to work with some of the most gifted and smart people around me. So most of the learning has come on the job for me in addition to academics. So I would stress on the point that wherever you work, your peer group, your superiors, your colleagues are the best source of learning because they are having some divergent experience which will be very, very valuable to you. So please do not limit one's learning to only academic part. Do not think once the degree is there and you got your job, the learning stops. Learning is a continuous process. And I think I've been very fortunate to learn from some of the most gifted people whom I've worked with so far. I came into NSE after spending 4 years with the Chicago Booth School of Business. So I went back to my alma mater. First, I was a student, then an alum, and I'm also fortunate to work with them. I ran their executive education, business, and outreach for India, Middle East, and South Asia. And I think that prepared me to take on the responsibility where I am today. So for me, coming back to NSE Academy, which is part of the National Stock Exchange, is like homecoming. Being in financial services, stepping into education, I think in this place, it's the coming together of both the worlds of financial learning and education together. So I think I'm very privileged to be here. Our mission is to prepare the next generation of workforce in the BFSI sector. We work very closely with organizations and academic institutions, and our mission is to bridge the gap between learning and earning. So match make the career prospects for individuals. Very happy to be part of the conversation today. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Blush. It's interesting you mentioned about financial literacy. Yes, and instead of calling them soft skills or anything else, I prefer calling them as essential skills because all these 21st century skills are essential for anyone getting a job. And in fact, if I look at whatever the past esteemed panelists have also spoken about, they've spoken about the same thing, whether it is logical reasoning or everything else, are part of those essential skills. Of course, when I was part of NASSCOM Foundation and the PMG Disha program was being recreated, yes, I was fortunate enough to put in financial literacy and financial transactions as part of it. Since NASSCOM Foundation and the Government of India co-created the digital literacy program in those days. I also was fortunate enough, in fact, at that time it was quite, it was challenging for me also because as a young faculty, I was given the odious task in 1988-89 to train the IBA vice president. I still remember the name Narendra Panjwani, and all his cronies were part of that training that I did, where computerization was entering the banks and things are going to change. And of course, the things have changed so much that when we withdraw money out of an ATM, we don't call it e-banking, we call it as banking. And things have moved in the direction where technology is more and more becoming important as far as banking is concerned. I still remember one of my discussions with in 2011-2012 when I was heading the ICICI Manipal Banking Academy, Baroda Manipal School of Banking, etc., with the then Deputy Governor of RBI, Mr. Chakravarti, where we discussed, and I was mentioning to him, sir, that in case banking industry moves the way that telecom industry has moved, which was at one time 64 rupees an incoming call, which is now free. In those days, of course, it was incoming was free, but outgoing was chargeable. I said, then banking also will grow in the similar kind of a pace. And thanks to people like Mr. Jain, who are moving into the fintech space. So moving on to you, Mr. Jain, if you could introduce yourself, your organization, and some crystal ball gazing for us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chan. Audible?
You are audible, but your voice is breaking. So my suggestion would be if you could switch off your camera when you're speaking, maybe the voice quality is better.
I will do. Is
Yeah,
it better
please
now?
carry on.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us the opportunity and listen to the eminent speakers over here. I would be accepting one thing is that there really anything left for my but still I will just share you what is my all has been till before I get into I do. I started my career way back in 2003, basically engineering graduate from Pune University. Was that I also did my PG from Institute of Management, Kozhikode, as well as I am also an alumni of Hyderabad. So since there are a lot of students hearing out in this particular webinar, I'll just try to tell you something about what my life has been till date. So after completing my PG from IIM and ISB, I got my first career in Infosys, and then I did that job in a span of 8 days, left campus of Mysore, came back to Hyderabad, joined a company called as ICICI. And I joined the company as a sales executive, leaving a career or a salary of 30 lakh. I'm speaking about in 2003. And joined ICICI package 1.7 lakhs annum. And why am I telling you this as an example for us that people would have ridiculed me during my lifetime. Look in a span of 2.5 years where I served ICICI, I have credit records and one Guinness Book of Record in financial service. Made tons of crores of money upon the reputation and recognition in financial services space. Thanks to kind of reward bonus financial services you, in case you are really trying in a way the industry looks at doing business with consumers. So what I'm trying to make a point over is knowledge is important, but more important and more prevailing in today's market is your thought process and ability to adapt and challenge the way the world has been moving. This is very fundamental and relevant today we are surrounded with. Having spent close to 2.5-3 years with them in middle of my career, I was the youngest regional head for ICICI. Left them and joined in early 2005 Yes Bank with a greenfield IPO. Again, a very different move I have taken, where bank as employee of bank operating out of 125 projects, not even was there in India, not even office was there in the country. Yes Bank. I'm referring to 2005 with IPO. Now you will be happy to know within a span of 7 months, I was able to execute and branches across West and for Yes Bank and was the CEO trophy from Mr. Kapoor. My team was contributing managingly and indirectly to 2,342 reportees auditors working with me, and as a unit we were contributing 73.4% pan-India revenue for Yes Bank year on year for consistent 2 years. And at that point I introduced the banking called as reverse bank. I'm telling this again, an innovation coming at center. Yes Bank didn't have retail banking network, retail banking products. So the challenge to for this organization, because on one side we have to take care of share price, and the other side we have to take the corporate we have for ourselves. Thereby, what we did is that we started to bank in a different manner. Traditional banking is a forward concept wherein you acquire customers by selling liability products we call today as current account and savings account, and the same customers to acquire which is nothing but different accounts. Since there is product portfolio network out there, not even single thereby the challenge was how to acquire the customers. So what we did is that started customers by distributing party products, which was mutual funds, gold products, general insurance, and gave this a zero deposit current account, savings account, and then cross-sold the same customers into products. What I'm trying to say is that if you look into a problem, it's a problem for everyone. But if you look at this problem challenge, it's an opportunity for you. At the end of the day, how you look it's very, very important. That's what will be different in this overcrowded world. That's a message. I served corporate world around for 11 plus years. Have, as I said, 17 records, one Guinness Book of World Record. I thought, let me live in the corporate world, and started doing my entrepreneurial back in 15. When I started first on to creating platform. When I started building this, which today we call as Anytime Locked-in, friends, you would be happy to know we were as a legal business in this great country. The RBI was discovering whether this particular kind of a business, where removing banks system and bringing technology at core, connecting the debtors borrowers, by every single deposit a bank its own. Can this be legally construed in? For almost 3.5 years, RBI was sitting on this particular order. Finally, November 8 is where we'll be able to secure NBFC UP license. You can't get through 3.5 years when you're doing your career one coming to you, what it goes inside. So we have seen, if you look out TechLoan.com, which is my entrepreneur endeavor, very proud we are world's first and only fintech which has got the capabilities to evaluate a borrower to basically run a predictive algorithm wherein we can predict accuracy 82.4% whether the potential borrower had a propensity willfully or not. This is something when we are, and I'm a student of science of economics, but when we were doing this, the world was looking at the different corners. But what I'm trying to say you is that if you have beef, if you have force, and if you have conviction, and you will see sun, if not today, after. And today, not just India's leading NP, but we are so profitable, we have missed any single extra happy date. Having said that, in recently post-corona event, I would say, right, we have another venture in InsurTech space, which we call InsurTech. Why we ventured into this? Today, if you look out, India is world's second largest population, but we are also the second most underpenetrated insurance market. Now, this is what gives me sleepless nights. And having said, if we are world's second most underpenetrated insurance market, Indian insurance companies collected $700 billion in FY 1920. $700 billion. Now, what am I trying to say over here? Even this particular, we're going around in India, less than 8% Indians, more precise, less than 8% Indians have got proper insurance cover which ensure that financial stability is taken care. God forbid anything happens to the breadwinner. Why this problem exists even after 60 years like India in place? I'm not against any of us, please don't take me that way. As an entrepreneur, I'm not a businessman. I'm a radical person. I have to change the way the business is doing in this world. And this was drives me. So today what we do in insurance is simple. You buy insurance from the company through any agent, through any bank, directly or indirectly to any digital mode. We are not a distribution platform. We're not another company which is going to come and put an insurance policy on your face. We're not going to do that. What we are going to do is when you pay tax, you don't get recognized. When you pay loans, you don't get recognized. People who don't pay their loans is in this great country. Similarly, people who have been paying premium for years upon years, they only see the return of their hard-earned money when an event happens to them. The irony of insurance, no one that event is a lifespan. Still, we are safeguarding and premiums for that. What InsurPace does, we encourage you by giving 100% premium equivalent worth value back points through my brand partners. So today, Speak went live in May 2020 during lockdown phase, and we have got around 16,000 brand partners pan India. You name a brand, we are on our platform, wherein you can get a deal ranging 20% upwards of 70%, right to groceries to the airline, to the Mahindra holidays, to the medicine that you buy, and get this for only one simple reason, that care for your future, you care for your family. And that's what we are to solve in short. These are two things which I'm doing right for my living. In terms of one is into Anytime, wherein we are a digital platform. We evaluate borrowers on one, connect with depositors on the other, eliminate the system. We simplify should banks have fun. This is a driving statement. In insurance, InsurePay, we have a very simple problem which we are trying to solve. How am I going to encourage users like you and me to continually honor your insurance, be motor insurance, health insurance, or life insurance, and give you something very, very exclusive because you care for your family, care for your. That's what we do.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Kitty. It was wonderful hearing you. Now, moving on to Praveen, if you could quickly introduce yourself and the organization and impact.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth. So I've recently taken charge of banking, financial services, and insurance sector. For the last 4 years, I've been heading aerospace and defense for the state. So this is an additional charge for me. But this is more like a comeback journey for me to BFSI sector because I started my career there. I joined NCDX after my MBA from Ahmedabad. I joined NCDX in the founding year, 2014. So I was a founding team member there. One of my independent projects was the warehousing subsidiary of theirs, the NCML. So I moved on as a business head there, where we mastered, or rather, we were kind of championing the warehouse receipt financing in DMAT form. So that is one of the first time a physical warehouse transaction where dematerialized just like NSE used to do in shares. So it is an extremely difficult transaction to be done to NSDL and CDSL without a proper regulatory framework covering that. But so we had actually done massive amount of transactions through around 13 banks, including Yes Bank, all the major PSU banks, etc., who are kind of tied up with us at a global level. So we're mostly underwriting the commodities as assets there. From there, I moved on to head the commodities business and later capital markets funding business of ILNFS InvestSmart. So that company got acquired by E-Trade. So with E-Trade, I was part of the PNB, the product management team, designing their entire lending portfolio. Then the company got acquired by HSBC. So with HSBC, I was there for 4 years, heading the Bfsi portfolio across all segments per se. Then I shifted to Pune to head an asset finance company, which was into machinery loan for SMEs as a COO. So that has given me another perspective, another domain in terms of in the funding space. Then I shifted back to Hyderabad to head the Bearings India private equity industry company called Untitled Chapter as the head of NBFC and distribution, where I did a lot of real estate funding. So across the asset spectrum, I had experience in the banking, capital markets, as well as in commodities domain. So when I look at the COVID scenario, I'm seeing that the entire spectrum of sales and service aspect covering all these industries will go for a sea change, and particularly with banking, like the focus is moved towards. I mean, we've been talking about digitization. We've been talking about the AI, ML, the blockchain, the big data, etc. But then the adoption of that will become imperative right now. Is something which when I come back to my current role, I think that's a great advantage for Hyderabad, because Hyderabad now banking and the BFSI industry traditionally has been focused or concentrated mostly on Bombay, and only generally the back office operations or processing hubs used to come to Hyderabad. But over the past couple of years, Hyderabad has been emerging as a very strong digital banking hub. I mean, like Mr. Sridhar had shared the number of employees they employ. In fact, I'm sure he's got a large team here. DBS has got the digital banking hub here. ICICI Bank has got the second largest office here. JP Morgan, Axis Bank, ITB, all of them are kind of setting up their tech back office, their the digital banking hubs, their data centers, the operational hubs, etc. These are not transactional way, but actually a lot of these, say HSBC has got around 20,000 people here. I mean, so when I took over the job, my role was to see how can we kind of increase employment in this sector, what should we focus from a state perspective, and this was something which is already happening. In fact, almost all the IT companies, be it Infosys, Wipro, probably 30 to 40% of their work is catering towards the FSI sector. So there is a sizable level of sizable number of people working here. The ecosystem is quite strong. We have got a beautiful balance of the digital capability as well as the domain expertise in here. And for the insurance, we have got the insurance regulator sitting here. So in my meetings with the insurance, the IIDA chair, so he was very keen that the insurance companies set up their offices here. So that's again another aspect you're looking at. Fintech, we're doing quite good. In fact, today morning, there was this news that Chickmonks, a T-Hub incubated fintech company, has raised funds, and that's something which is quite encouraging. Similarly, with IDRBT and the IID, etc., we're also exploring sandboxes to be created for fintech companies to set up their base here and then grow. So the focus will be to kind of nurture these developments, particularly from a government side. We wouldn't want to intervene, but we want to facilitate. So from TSISC, we have multiple paths. In fact, we must be one of the few states who is having a dedicated financial district, apart from probably Bombay, where a lot of these fintech companies are there, and a lot of these companies are also located in high-tech city. T-Hub is doing a lot of work in terms of encouraging fintech startups, and Task is doing a lot of work in terms of skilling for whatever is the new investments which are coming in.
Great. Thanks, Praveen, for helping us understand the ecosystem itself. And since you mentioned that, we already have the fintech, the financial district, sorry, and, we are looking at further getting all the big people over here and increasing. So what kind of opportunities would this vision of Telangana government? Praveen, you still there?
Praveen, I think he has dropped off. He has some network connectivity issues, I guess.
Okay, no, he's just muted his camera. So, Praveen, I'm asking you the next question, which is, since you spoke about the ecosystem itself, what kind of opportunities would be available for the youth of Telangana in the BFSI sector that you are envisaging? No, he has dropped off. Okay, I'll come back to him later on. Then let me start with you, Satish. Genpact is one of the market leaders in running and supporting, the support operation BFSI. Genpact hires a lot of students through Task also every year. What kind of opportunities do you see for fresh graduates with Genpact post this pandemic?
So, see, Genpact continues to be the employer of choice as our hiring opportunities remain the same, Shrikant.
Right.
So there's nothing which is changing. Because of the pandemic, there has been a dip for sure in the numbers, but we continue to hire graduates. And when I say graduates, fresh graduates. Now, for BFSI world, we prefer commerce graduates. I think commerce graduates are the one which we look forward for. And specifically, we look freshers for our business to business and business to customer kind of opportunities. So something like doing high-end voice processes that we have, and where the folks who have proper voice skills can be absorbed immediately. So there's no big challenge around that. Then Hyderabad as a specific location, I think we look for more customer service, customer what you call data analysis and finance skill sets, which are important. That is what we normally operate from. And we also look for more, the additional factor would be that we look for more language skills, multi-language skills. That helps us in kind of hiring these fresh graduates in Genpact. And as we talk, I think we continue to do our hiring engine is on. We have gone 100% virtual hiring. We are actually hiring and onboarding people virtually as we talk. So that's where we are in terms of hiring, in particularly for BFSI industry.
Thank you, Satish. That was helpful. Moving on to you, Sridhar Garu. Again, if we talk about organizations such as Wells Fargo, again, a lot of fresh graduates are recruited by them. What are the 2 or 3 top skills that organizations such as yours look at while hiring graduates?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, with the changing environment, I know it's even before COVID, the digitization, digital marketing, all these emerging technologies came into play. And as Praveen said, now things got faster, and the pace on these engagements will going to be further higher. So I would say that in general, the BFSI sector is moving more towards better customer experience. So which means that the young grads and some of the laterals need to spend time on UI UX design thinking skills, because when you open a mobile app or when you open a desktop app, one should feel comfortable with less number of clicks. One should be able to do whatever they want to do with as an end customer. That's the aspiration, right? So there would be investment in a better customer experience, which means all the college grads and everyone, anyone interested technical should think about UI UX design thinking, right? In addition to that, the front end software development is extremely important to make things successful. Besides the UI UX, so things like Angular JS, Bootstrap, jQuery, or HTML5. These are some of the front-end software development skills one need to possess. If not, I think the best approach would be look at some of the e-platforms, right? Be it Pluralsight or Udemy or Teachable. If you really want to go much more open courseware, MIT open courseware. So there are a whole slew of e-platforms out there one can leverage and make things happen. Of course, these are more on the front end side. But if you really want to go for much more emerging like AI/ML, you really want to spend time on Hadoop, learning Hadoop, Cloudera. So those would be some of the areas I would think team members, sorry, the college grads should be investing in to make themselves successful, because that's where things would be moving forward.
Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you very much. I think the point that you raised is very, very valid, and I think it is very important for our students also to understand that they need to possess these skills for having a good career in organizations such as yours. Moving on to you, Ras, in case if you look at it, option for graduates of commerce and finance, what kind of roles can they expect post-COVID? Because we have got a lot of students from commerce colleges over here who are attending. Incidentally, we crossed about 450 roughly students who are attending this webinar, people who are attending this webinar. Before you start, I would also like to request everyone again, I'm sure you'd have a lot of questions that you would like to ask our esteemed panelists. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and post our discussions, we would be taking up those questions. Over to you, Mr. Taras.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth. For the fresh graduates, I would suggest, 3 areas they should be focusing. One is, so many banks, public sector banks or, private sector banks, or even NBFCs or mutual funds or insurance companies.
Sure.
They are looking to recruiting at the starting level. When it comes to public sector banks, of course, they have a process of written test and a group discussion. There also, there are 3 cadres available if you are looking at them. One is, the clerical, which is below the executive level. The second is the executive level, and third is the officer level. No, I mean, all these require preparation for banking exams. And if we have time, I would say that there are so many online banking training courses which prepare you for enabling you to write these exams, and also how to face the interviews. So I thought that it is the right time. You can use your the time. Maybe it is a 3 months, 4 months duration courses are there. You can go through them, and many banks are not yet advertised. They are holding it up just to see, when the things will normalize. In fact, so many banks would have advertised by now, but I understand, they are holding up, and maybe, they might announce in this month, in the month of August, so which means the examinations will be there sometime in October, November, and December. So you have a lot of time to prepare for these examinations. So I would suggest that, you take to this option. The second is, so many NBFCs and private sector banks recruit directly. Uh, I know you can open their portals. They have a career, option there. You can apply them, or you may be having, your network. You ask them. You can directly make an entry into these institutions also. The third, which is very important and which can facilitate as a stopgap arrangement, is, most of the banks or NBFCs or even insurance companies look for some experience. Now, so many public sector banks or even the private sector banks are resorting to what is called as outsourcing of the sales activity. Even, in IDBI Bank, even ICICI Bank, even Bank of Baroda, and many other banks, we have a large number of teams. In fact, I would say that in so far as IDBI Bank is concerned, the total number of so-called regular employees is in the range of nearly 18,000, including the clerical level. Okay, but we have as many numbers in the outsourcing form, so you can see the opportunities available there. So what, the fresh graduates do is they join this outsourcing pool, and these are generally run by the team leasing and other private sector, people who are into employing the freshers, and them, outsource them to the banks and other institutions which are looking for such people. Now you can start with this, and you will get an idea about what the financial services are about, and you will also in the process get an idea about the banking, the functions, and then the banking terminologies, and then the technology platforms, and you become familiar with the whole activity. And maybe after a year, the experience you have gained would be so useful that, you will be straight away absorbed in many of the banking and non-banking financial institutions. So I think, the plenty of jobs are available through this outsourcing channel. So I think, you should straight away join this outsourcing pool if you find it difficult to get into the banks and NBFCs directly through written examinations. And then, as Mr. Sridhar and other panelists indicated, I think, you have to enable yourself and upgrade yourself, by learning new tech platform, skills. It may be, the clouding, it may be the SaaS, it may be, analytical tools. These also, I understand, there are 3 to 6 months courses, short-term duration courses. You can use this time to go through that, and you will be absorbed in so many banks and financial institutions which are looking for candidates with this kind of a skill. So I stop here, unless there are some questions on this.
Thank you, Gopal Krishna Garu. That was very helpful. And
Mr. Srikanth, I just want to add few lines, if I may,
please.
to what Mr. Gopal Krishna Garu said. So being, since you said there are a lot of commerce graduates, I also want the students to look at GARP certification. This is an FRM certification that is useful for the students because it can differentiate them a lot. The reason being, Risk is a platform that is emerging a lot faster in India, and it's going to consolidate further with all this COVID situation. The valuation of various assets, the risk models, the quantitative analysis that we normally do, all these things are changing with time, right? Yeah. So new attributes are being added. So if the students can think of FRM as an option, that would be a great idea.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Definitely. Now, moving on to you, Abhilashji, in case you can help us understand, again, from a BFSI sector perspective, I will not ask you about the hotel industry here. So, about BFSI, what kind of, how should the students prepare themselves for career in the BFSI sector? You're muted.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. So there is a lot of apprehension in the students' mind currently because of the situation. Also, the parents also who are equally concerned about the delay in the examination, the shifting of the timelines in the career path also. And I would say even if this change happens for next 6 months or 1 year, let us not take this as a gap year, but as a boost year. And the term I'm using is from the CEO of Kaplan Financial, Andrew Temte. He mentions that let us take this, in US he's talking about a boost year in which let's prepare ourselves in these 6 months or 9 months or 12 months for the next wave of opportunities that will come our way. And I would simply say, let's be very optimistic and pragmatic. If we look at the data points, the 2008 global crisis or the dot-com crisis in 2000, the jobs did not probably vanish, but they evolved into different roles altogether. So jobs changed the shape and form. So what we see today in terms of transition of digital adoption, I think what could have happened in 5 years has happened in 3 months' time in terms of learning and development, totally moving to remote, even work from home. Thank you for highlighting this. Seamlessly, all financial services company, even the exchange, while essential staff still goes to office, but 90% of us are working from home, and still the operations are fully functional. So I think it goes a lot way to say that technology has become a backbone and the enabler for us. If I were to just give a holistic advice, I think first, in addition to these qualifications they get at the academic front in the universities and colleges, they should keep building their portfolio of professional qualifications also. And as it was just mentioned, to pick up industry certifications like Sridhar was mentioning of GARP or FRM, there are various other accreditation agencies that provide these certifications, including us. So NSE certifications we provide across domains in financial services, banking and capital markets. Keep taking these certifications. These are essential add-ons. Take regulatory certifications. Let's say the National Institute of Security Market, they have essential certifications. Please take those. Pick up unique projects. While you have time, today I can see so many ads on LinkedIn. It's a great professional network. I personally use it on remote projects. You don't have to actually step out of your home. You can pick up e-projects today on the interest area, your focus industry, the profession you want to choose in banking and financial services. Either you want to go to a retail bank or a mutual fund, insurance, even the GICs. You might pick up a particular topic or subject and start doing remote projects. There are so many projects available online also for freshers. Do a job market analysis, see where the job market is heading. And I would obviously say, look at the job placement boards on, let's say, monster.com, indeed.com, naukri.com. See what kind of jobs are coming up. Just do a normal filter search for 0 to 2 years, and you will see a lot of jobs in the area of interest that you are looking at. And this gives a clear indication whether the jobs are getting created or not. And I must tell you, it is not as gloomy as it sounds. India is growing. The first-time users of banking services are increasing. We have the highest demographic dividend worldwide. The government's plan for financial inclusion, Jan Dhan, access to banks, subsidies, it all needs a basic banking account. And once you have a bank account, credit facilities, loans, investment products, savings accounts, corporate products, everything gets part of it. So there is a lot of opportunity, not only in the pure banking, but in the allied services and insurance, mutual fund, GICs also. Look at skills that employers are seeking. Once you do research, you will find skills that are required in the marketplace. Build networks. Please speak to your friends, your faculty at the university college, maybe people like us on this forum. If somebody wants to reach out, we are available on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to help if you want to seek some advice. Build your networks, find out what kind of opportunities are coming up. Build yourself into some social activities, create a sense of community around you, be helpful in the world around you. It gives you a sense of inclusion and also a sense of pride, and which is very, very important for taking a confident stance as you enter the job world. And also, if you want to pursue, there are so many online courses available now, on edX, Coursera, even on NSE Knowledge Hub. within banking and financial services, other related areas, please pick up those courses and spend your time and use this as a boost year. I normally talk about a 12-month plan, and I would love to share here with the audience, which is mostly students. Let's take the first quarter today, starting from July. Use the next quarter to let the world know what you want to do. Reach out to people, talk to them, put on your LinkedIn or social media account what kind of job you're seeking, what is your career interest. Find your strengths, do some surveys, assessments, they are freely available online to find what your strengths are in technical and softer skill areas. Find a mentor, talk to people who are senior in the industry, your senior colleagues, in your neighborhood, in your housing society, industry people, take them as mentors. Maybe next quarter you want to search on your ideal organizations, whether you want to work for a bank or a financial institution, mutual fund, insurance, just find that ideal organization, what is like. What is your ideal job? What do you prefer to do? Filter out, keep filtering. Otherwise it will be just shooting in the dark. And then, as I said, pick up some projects which are helpful to you. Third, do some discovery conversations. Today, distance has become immaterial. Like we are having this wonderful meeting today. Use an online account on Zoom or Skype or wherever to meet people, talk to them, do a WhatsApp call, discuss with them what kind of job opportunities coming in the marketplace. Be an influencer, write about what you want to do. Nobody stops you from writing on your Facebook or your LinkedIn account. Publish your research areas, your areas of interest. That's also a social platform. And connect, build networks. And probably last quarter is at least have 3 companies shortlisted in your mind, have detailed conversation with the recruiters there, look at the geography, industry, function you want to work out, and then go ahead. But the idea is to filter. You want to join a mutual fund, insurance, retail bank. What in retail bank? Do you want to be in operations? Do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in customer services? Keep filtering down, and I'm sure all of us can come at a conclusion that there are opportunities available. And what interests us, as we are looking for jobs as students, even organizations are looking for talent. There is a lot of, what you call excitement in organizations to bring the right talent on. It's just about finding what we exactly want to do. But if we are just broad basing ourselves, we won't find success. We'll have to be very focused. And as I said, this is time with us. Next 6 months, 9 months is a boost year. Utilize this time to learn and create the matchmaking that you can do for yourself in your career. That's from me.
Thank you, Abhilash. I also take this opportunity to welcome Mr. T. Muralidharan, the chairman of the Executive Council of FICCI for Telangana, as well as the founder and chairman of TMI Group. Welcome, Murali.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moving on to Praveen. Praveen, what you spoke about the complete the ecosystem and how exactly are moving on. Probably what I would like to also understand from you is you spoke about this various opportunities. So I want you to help us understand what kind of employment opportunities are going to be available for the youth of Telangana, the way you discussed and described the large institutions coming in and so on and so forth.
So the way I look at it, there are 3 ways to three branches, so to say. The traditional banking, which typically hires to the bank PO exams, go to the clerical level, have the rotations and then grow up in the career. But then, interestingly, in all these forums, I've not seen a career banker who has kind of worked throughout. Almost all of them, all of the panelists or all the active members have shifted multiple sectors, and that's the kind of a skill which probably all of us need to be prepared for. Opportunities might arise, changes might happen, so you need to be prepared for it and then shift into that easily. Second is the fintech side. Fintechs certainly are getting a lot of focus. See, traditionally, banks and the larger institutions are also inside focus. They're worried about their compliance, they're worried about the regulator, they're worried about how their reputation and their processes are all kind of maintained. So they are not, while they might profess customer friendly, customer first, etc., but then the primary focus is to see that everything is above par. While on the fintech side of things, it's always been customer focused in terms of how can they kind of make the ease of transaction much more simpler. What the banks or the institutions are not able to do, how can they kind of make the last mile connectivity much more smoother. So, they are operating in 2 different domains and someday they need to converge. a fintech can't expect that banks will trust their system entirely. In fact, banks themselves are building their own digital ecosystems themselves. So it's a period of time when the convergence happens. So I see that this is a wonderful opportunity for a lot of fintechs. In fact, that's again another thing which probably the students can consider if they have enough tech talent amongst themselves, as well as they can team up, probably join these startups for experience sake. And these experience in startups will be kind of valid. In fact, it will be much more valued in times to come. So if the pay may be low, it may not have a large labor, but that may be a still a good approach to do. In fact, Mr. Abhilash had said that a lot of Coursera courses are there, a lot of edX courses are there, which are free of cost. It doesn't, you don't have to go to an Ivy League college or probably any of the IIMs or all any longer, because I passed out from an IIM myself. But I mean, at times I find it kind of difficult to really catch up with the technologies which are right now in vogue. So those are the things which the entry levels are much more accessible than before. So that is what I feel. And second is, as you said, we are no longer targeting the low end BPO jobs or the low end processing jobs coming to India or coming to Hyderabad now. We are now talking about high end digital core banking jobs, the entire digital banking hubs of larger institutions across the world, because this is a low cost destination and we are a huge consumer base. At the end of the day, I'm sure that the regulations will allow some sort of a parity at a later stage, but then the entire world looks at India as a consumer market. So any product which, and we are also known for our tech talent. In fact, almost all the top US IT companies are driven by Indians. So the tech DNA is well known to the world. So I think increasingly there will be focus on tech hubs like Bangalore, Hyderabad, etc. to be seen in Pune, for that matter, to be seen as where the larger banks and institutions will kind of shift part of their activities, low cost as well as good quality talent, and that's what we are preparing ourselves for. So yeah, these are the opportunities which I see in the near term. Now, certainly there is a lull. The banks are now flooded with money, but they are unwilling to lend, or they don't find opportunities to lend. Industries are all kind of really waiting for money, but then there is this kind of a balance which is yet to arrive. So most of the bankers are expecting that there will be a lull for the next couple of quarters, 2-3 quarters will take for the proper hiring to kind of restart in a traditional sense. Meanwhile, the new age jobs like the digital banking, the big data kind of the analytics part of it, those kind of applications are now being focused on. So wherever there is competencies built there, will find absorption. In fact, a couple of banker friends were telling that they are planning hackathons for hiring digital talent, which is unheard of earlier in a traditional banking firm. So these are again, the recruitment, banking recruitment, again, you don't kind of go through the typical test, but then there are opportunities to kind of present your skills and then get hired right away. So those kind of times are coming in. I think we need to be prepared for that.
Thank you, Praveen. Probably this is the time when I would like to bring in Murli. Murli, of course, written and authored books on careers and jobs and everything else, apart from having an illustrious career of practically 3 decades plus, and is the chairman for the Telangana State Council for FICCI. Murli, in case you could introduce yourself and your work, and also help us understand what are the gaps that exist in the skills required for the banking industry, and what can the graduates do to fill those gaps. Over to you, Murli. Murli, your voice seems to be breaking.
Is it my voice clear?
Murli, your voice is still breaking. I don't know why.
Okay, just a minute. Give me a minute. It is blinking my audio.
Shrikant sir, this is Malika. So
Yes,
can we
Malika.
suggest Murtharan sir to switch off the camera if that might be a low bandwidth issue?
I'll get my video.
Yes, please. Yeah.
My audio.
Malika, there still seems to be some problem.
Okay, sir. I'll talk to Muralidhar, sir, on phone, and I'll get this sorted.
Okay, so Muralidhar, we will come back to you. Malika, who's the administrator and the co-founder of Okta, will just connect it with you on phone and get you back. In the meantime, I'll move to Mr. Jain and find out from him about the startup ecosystem and a lot of people who are there as fresh graduates are slightly wary whether they should join startups or not. And we know for a fact that large companies cannot give enough employment as small and MSMEs can give, and especially the startups. In fact, micropreneurs are what India should have to ensure that the employment problem gets solved. So from your perspective, what do you look at when hiring people for your organization?
Thank you so much. When you look at any kind of income, the most important element that we think is the attitude. That
You have to switch off your camera. Your video will have to be switched off, I think, because yeah, please carry on.
Is it better? Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, the fundamental, most important element that we look for before any movement is the team is the attitude you brings on the table. That's very important for in terms of agility, in terms of adaptability, because from a startup perspective, more or less, you require anyone to come by wherein the ability to unlearn and relearn has to be very, very fast. Because normally startups are trying to change the way businesses have been run in a niche fashion. So that's a fundamental important element of attitude, which we always look for from a candidate concern. That's what the question was.
Thank you. Okay. Not too many questions coming up, but we have a question. Is Mr. Murli back, Malika, or will he take a couple of minutes more?
Yeah, it'll take a couple of minutes more, sir.
All right. So we will start with the question. There's a question from Mohammed Abdul Rahman. He asks, what are qualities we have to get we need to have to get higher position in the banking sector? First of all, how do we start career in BFSI sector? My question is for Praveen sir.
We covered that, in fact.
Yes.
Typically, I think that in my last comment, I had covered it. BFSI career, as I said, you can go through the PO mode, or probably, with the additional skills that one acquire, you can actually go directly in the lateral stream as well.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions? I request people who would like to ask questions to put them in the chat box. I think this session has been so good and so clear that most of the people have understood and they don't have too many questions. I'm assuming that to be correct. So either that's the reason or something. So let me, while we wait for questions and Mr. Murli also to come on board, let me ask Sridhar, you, how difficult was it for the people to move on to work from home? And how did you make it possible?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really easy to move to work from home, given that in general, the BFSI organizations are risk averse. We have protocols around, where we can work from. We cordon off especially the back office. have much more regulations or restrictions around, whether they can work from home or not. So yeah, I mean, we had to work with our business partners to make sure, we take those, risk approvals to have people work from home. That's the first thing we have done. And then given the infrastructure readiness, internet was a good opportunity and work from home. People who had internet, it was much easier. We could give the laptops and move on. But people who didn't, we had to struggle. So it happened in a structured, phased manner in terms of moving people. So we looked at, who are the core engineers or core support staff who are taking care of lights on to be managed first, because our assets were limited. And then we took care of that, followed by that, business is important. So, we made sure assets were given to the back office, and, they could operate as well. Having said, we are still doing it. I hear from other BFSI groups as well, and besides Wells Fargo, that, some had were advanced a bit in terms of work from home strategy. Some were catching up to the overall situation. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an easy move, and now it's the other way around. Like, we are so established to work from home that many organizations don't want to come back to office, even if things open up, because it takes a while to settle down on what you can do, how you can do it, and now to undo that is going to be equally tough. So there must be a transition plan in both the ways, I would say. But this entire COVID situation did reveal a lot of issues with respect to the risk appetite, with respect to the readiness of infrastructure, even with respect to a lot of college grads and laterals staying in PGs and having containment zones. How do we operate? So a lot of logistical challenges. We took support from the nodal offices to make sure things are smoothened. We took support from the government organizations to support as well. So yeah, I mean, a whole lot of things, a combination of efforts really helped us. We worked with SCSC, we worked with Jayesh Garu, and made sure things happened better.
Yeah, I have heard of the stories how 30,000 laptops were delivered across Telangana, in fact, across Hyderabad when the pandemic close down was announced, and how that was facilitated. So fantastic. Murli Garu, are you there with us now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. So over to you, if you could introduce yourself, your work, especially the books that you have authored, and you are, I believe, authoring one right now as we speak, and also understanding the gap, since you have placed a lot of people in all industries actually, but banking also is one of your important domains. The skill gaps over there, and how can a fresh graduate actually fit in? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for all the confusion. My apologies to all of you for making you wait. Basically, my work has been in trying to understand the job fitment for young graduates. My first book was called How to Find the Right First Job. But the second book was very specific, 101 jobs for fresh graduates. And it is one of the bestsellers published by Rupa. And actually, there are two chapters in that book, one on the banking industry and one on the insurance industry. In both these specific sectors, I've talked about job roles which are exactly suitable for graduates. Now, coming back to specifically what has COVID done? COVID has completely changed and transformed the banking industry. But whatever my assumptions, my thought process of the banking industry is going upside down. And I'll explain this very briefly. We are doing a series of webinars with the top leadership of banking industry, private sector and public sector. And I'm doing one on insurance industry with LIC and other major insurance companies in the next week. What purpose of these talks with this top leadership of this organization is to try to understand how the world is going to change. So the first and foremost, world is going to change. If you look at, for example, the banking industry, the largest number of people young people or in the retail banking sector. In the retail banking sector, there are primarily three job roles. One is on the asset side, one is on the liability side, and the third one is the collection. These are the top three roles in any bank, apart from operations, which are largely automated. So let me go step by step. If you divide the banks into selling side and the operation side, op side is where they do customer service, they do all the procedures and processes for a person to interact with the bank. Cross selling happens. So there are two broad categories of job roles. One is called NTB, new to the bank. New to the bank is the most important task for a bank to keep on adding more and more customers. And the second part is basically after you acquire the customer, then you do a lot of transaction through him. For example, you want a checkbook, you want to do a transaction through a bank, you want to do a transaction from one bank to another. All of them are coming under the category called operations. So traditionally, banks used to have a concept of operations managers who come from probationary officers in a public sector bank. And private sector banks, people used to have special 1 year training program after graduation. They go and do a specialized program somewhere else and then join a bank at one level before equivalent to probationary officer in a public sector bank. That particular job role is completely getting transformed. There are two major trends happening there. One, there is a bank automation is already going on with a large amount of tools and platforms like TCS or Infosys. Many of them are already done banking operations online, banking operations automation. But what now is going to happen, there is going to be a combination of robotic process automation, what we call RPA, and there is going to be a large amount of tools which are going to use to majority of the automation will happen in the operation. My discussion with the bank top leadership, they expect this to be very significantly reduced in number of people working there. The second part is the NTB, new to the bank. How do we get more customers into the bank and how do we cross sell? Now, this is the largest segment of people and they are traditionally in the liability side, they're called a CASA, current account, savings account executives. They go around signing up with customers and ask them to sign up and become a current account, savings account. The second category of people are in the asset side. They sell home loans, car loans, various kinds of loans which the bank gives. And the third is the collection side. Now, what has happened, COVID has done, and I think many of us may not be aware of this. That's a huge thing happening there. Thanks to COVID, the government has postponed a lot of personal loans and retail loans of individuals. So starting in sometime in September, October, the biggest challenge for many of the banks which have gone the retail route is to collect money. So traditionally, if you were to ask a bank last year, when I was speaking to the bank, what's your biggest problem? They will say, no, we want more and more sales guys, both for asset side and liability side. Now everybody is saying, yeah, we have enough sales guys, we have enough people who can do the liability side. Please bring us experts in collection. Now, what's the problem here? The problem is you cannot reach out to your customers to collect money. This is exactly what COVID has done. The whole concept of face-to-face interaction is being replaced with remote interaction. For example, if you want to acquire a customer, whether in banking or insurance industry, you will not be able to go to somebody's office. You will not be able to go to somebody's house. Now it is the concept is called selling digitally. So this is going to disrupt the entire current lot of people working in banks, especially private sector banks and retail banking. Many of them cannot do the job. What they can do face to face, they have to sell remotely. They cannot do the job. So there's a lot of upskilling going to happen, a lot of reskilling going to happen. But for the young graduate, this is a great opportunity. Why? Primarily because young people adapt to technology much easier. For example, if I want to acquire a customer in a bank, I have to now speak through Zoom call or a tool like what we are using right now. In that call, I have to make an impact. I have to make a connection with him. I must show him something. I must talk to him, answer objections, everything in a virtual basis and still maintain that impact and the influencing power to be able to sign the customer. All the banks are aware of this is the most crucial step in the customer acquisition process, which is basically influencing them to make a decision, whether it is a banking or insurance. So the first point I'm saying, disruption means remote selling. Remote selling means selling digitally. Selling digitally means being very, very aware of digital tools. For example, how do you use LinkedIn to acquire customers? How do you use Facebook to profile customers? How do you use technology like calendar to set timing with your customer so that customer and you sign up on the account? So there is going to be, we have identified 10 separate tools on which a person has to have proficiency to go into remote selling model. And the good news is that a lot of people in the organizations cannot be able to migrate so quickly as the young students can do. So if I'm a student today, I'm going to go back and asking myself, what are the 10 tools I need to know to be able to sell digitally? So the numbers are going to be large. So that's on the one side. The second side, I think public sector banks, I think there was some discussion, gentlemen, I heard from IDBI Bank. We're also working with IDBI Bank. It got acquired by LIC. Now, a lot of these public sector banks are merging now. When they merge, the good news is that many after post-merger, there is going to be a large amount of people who are surplus in certain job roles and deficit in some job roles. In public sector banks, the problem with all public sector banks has been they are more comfortable when customers walk into their premises or connect with them. They're not very comfortable connecting with customers, which is what the private sector banks are doing. Post merger and consolidation, there are going to be 4 or 5 large banks like SBI, Bank of Baroda, and so on. These banks are going to look for young people, either on staffing roles or on permanent roles, who can demonstrate ability to sell digitally. Now, the last point about this comment is that selling digitally is so different from selling face to face. Many of the young people were avoiding joining a bank or a insurance company because they didn't want to do face to face selling or what we call feet on street selling. Now that era is ended. Now it has become technology driven. It become more like a B2B selling, lot of planning, lot of profiling. So the whole job, which is a very drudgery, boring, repetitive, very job is nobody wanted to join, suddenly has become attractive. So that's the beauty. So one, I'll conclude by saying there is going to be a major disruption in the banking sector, in the insurance sector too. In both these sectors, the key is the models are going to be two things in insurance sector and banking. Selling remotely becomes very critical, which requires understanding of tools. A new kind of skill sets are required, which is not there in the banking sector. So, for example, you look at a bank like Axis Bank, it will have 30,000 people who are selling the retail banking side and the asset side and the liability side alone. So many of them will become redundant. So there is going to be large hiring, but it will take 6 months before the hiring starts. But they will look for people who are digital natives, people who are smart, who can use the digital medium very well. They can send out, use the technology very well. So I would strongly advise that all of them should look for courses on remote selling. And the second part about collections, that historically collections also have to be done remotely now, because you cannot go on one side. RBI is also given a lot of concessions for the retail borrowers, but retail collections will be number one priority for private sector banks and even public sector banks. So these two roles, I would say, estimate somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 job roles will arrive in the next 2 years. So there's a lot of opportunities for young people. Thank you, Srikanth.
Thank you, Murli Garu. That was fantastic. I think what you have said is 100,000 to 200,000. I think is music to all our ears, including all my young friends who are looking for careers in the banking industry. Thank you also for helping us understand, the difference and how people can actually work over there. I think a question has been asked by Vivek, which is, we are from IT background, what opportunities? I think Satish Garu and Sridhar Garu have already spoken about that earlier on.
Yeah, I would like to answer that question. But I can answer this one point. I think, Srikanth, I think one thing you must tell young people now.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest mistakes we do is that we think we have a background. We don't have any background. I went to IIT, I went to IIM Ahmedabad. Only thing I've realized is I acquired some generic knowledge. I had no skills. I had no specialization. At undergrad level, somebody thinks I'm specialist in IT, I'm specialist in this. It's a bogey. The fact is, you've learned some skills, you've done some exams, you read some books, you wrote something, and that's nothing to do with who you are. In fact, the whole modern hiring processes are moving away from understanding what skills you have to who you are. What is your basic personality? Do you have clarity about what you want to do? For example, we find in our experience, a lot of people join the IT industry, go to campuses and join Infosys and TCS of the world, At the end of 2 years, most of them are trying to exit the IT job and trying to look for a job in go to MBA school and come back into mainstream.
Yes.
So I think this entire concept you have to debunk. At the undergraduate level, there's no concept of IT specialization. They know nothing, we know nothing. What we have is an attitude. If you build an attitude saying, I want to be relevant, I want to work hard, I want to learn new things, I'm very good with technology, now, these things are very useful. Otherwise, you will get caught with a belief, I have some IT knowledge, I look for a job in TCS, and TCS may not be interested in you, you get depressed. Unnecessarily, we are getting a clarity, we are lacking that clarity to say that you know very little. Please start at the first step based on your fundamental attitude to life. Have some clarity about what you want to do with your life. Build communication skills, build technology adoption skills. I think these are enough to take you anywhere. And even I would say very strongly, even though IT industry has been a very, very darling of most of the graduates, that sector is going to change dramatically.
Yeah.
The skill sets are going to move so much up. Many people get disappointed. It's like writing IIT exam. I mean, 2 lakh people write IIT exam for getting 9,000 vacancies, and it's the biggest disappointment. So I am strongly encouraging all young friends listening to me at this point of time. Please don't get carried away with what you know. Focus on what you need to know. Focus on what basic skills and competencies that you build, and then go where the market is moving. If you go where the market is moving, as I said, digital space is where the action is, and that is across industries. It is going to be in banks, it is going to be in insurance, everywhere, every single part of the operation. For example, I mentioned about robotic process automation. That's something any of us can do. You don't need a very high level IT skill. You don't have to be a computer science graduate to do robotic process automation. So at the undergraduate level, I want to encourage all of them to start thinking in terms of being relevant in the job market, being in the industry which is growing very fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Murli. That was wonderful. And I absolutely agree with you. In fact, if you look at the panel itself, and that's what when the panelists were introducing themselves, it was very evident that everyone has moved right from structural engineering to hotel industry to me being a physics graduate. So absolutely right. Life is what it makes out of you as you approach life, and your attitude is most important. I think most of the questions that have come up have been answered. But Sridhar Garu, you wanted to mention about some of the certification exams for the insurance industry. So probably you could help, because some people have asked what is the skills that we need to develop for insurance. So if you could, respond to that.
Yeah, I can probably answer more on the US Bfsi industry. So typically in the insurance sector, when I worked in CSC managing Zurich Financial Services, there was a lot of emphasis to talk the same terminology, to be at the same wavelength. And so INS 21, which is the property and liability insurance, that's a good certification to do. And personal insurance INS 22 and commercial insurance 23. But as Murli Garu earlier said, just about certification, but we also need to understand like what it really means to us, what it really means to the business, and how we can convert all that we know into the business language that people can hear. But still, I would prefer, if people don't know where to start, probably reading that material would take them somewhere.
Sure. Thanks.
Srikanth, I can talk about Indian insurance sector, because what he talks about was US.
Yeah,
so in India, there are actually, India, there is one for agent. If you want to do any business if you want to be a sales guy in insurance industry, you need IRDA a very basic level course. That's a very low level course. Anybody can pass. If you really put some little energy, you can pass. Apart from that, there is no certification except for actuarial science. So there are only 2 certifications in India which is required. One to be a salesman, which is going to be a very base level course on basics of insurance. And the other one is basically actuarial, which is very advanced insurance. In between, hardly any certification required in India.
Yeah. Kirti Jain, would you like to also add anything to what Murli Garu has said?
Yeah, so as Murli said, is apt that in insurance industry, if you look out, especially the kind of relation which is evident to us, right, more US, whether we like or dislike insurance being pushed on consumers with only two big attitudes. One of them being that God for anything happens to you next. Fear is what we are selling. Second, we are selling insurance as a carrying instrument. And the reality is that insurance is a security instrument. It's a savings instrument. And once we are moving this particular persona of insurance in India, I believe two important elements will happen, especially from a global landscape. Globally, insurance industry are the largest private equity investors. To be more precise, to $800 million is the UM of insurance industries globally. Insurance brings a lot of capital, which is long-term gestation period, which is very important in India. We need the infrastructure here, where we need capital at a very low cost and not a long gestation period. So I firmly believe there are two big principles for India if India can pursue properly. One is digitizing the entire banking system, and second is digitization of the entire finance system. If we can take these two as a mission statement, India will certainly be top economies in global next 5 to 10 years. That's from my side.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it's already 5 o'clock. So if there are no further questions, Shruti, then I would be, probably anyone would like to comment on anything else, or, any last comments or anything as such?
I would just like to add one thing. Try to be as visible as possible in the den. In fact, I've been seeing a lot of students who are writing research reports on the chosen sectors and posting on LinkedIn. Some of them are quite interesting. And they are all actually summarized versions of existing reports itself. But at least that will show focus of yours to a prospective employer. I think, and again, try to flaunt your certifications, what you do. Let people take notice. And as and when the requirement arises, they will kind of come and find you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Anything else? If not, then, if you look at it, I think the message that came across, and just to add 2 + 2, what, Abhilash said in the beginning, let it be like a boost year, which he had borrowed from Kaplan. And what I said in the beginning, every crisis needs to be used as an opportunity. I think for the youth in the country today, this crisis also needs to be used as an opportunity. Let it become a boost year for you. And as Murli Garu and everyone else also said on the panel, that youth need to skill themselves towards fundamentals and also their attitude, as well as what we call as the 21st century transferable skills, be it towards financial literacy or understanding IT, etc., understanding how to problem solve, design thinking. All these are very, very important. And of course, task would be conducting programs on all of these skills, etc. 21st century skills is already being offered, but we are also going to conduct, in fact, to Murli Garu's point, we have signed up with both the robotization and process automation organizations, which is Automation Anywhere as well as UiPath. And very soon we would be commencing training programs on both these RPA platforms also for the youth of Telangana. So definitely we are geared up, and the industry is also probably requiring a couple of quarters of downtime. But as everyone said, there are a huge number of jobs available. You need to skill yourselves to take those jobs. On that note, I would like to thank my esteemed panelists, starting with Murli Garu. Thank you very much for being part of this, and also helping and for Fiki helping us put this panel together. Moving on to Gopal Krishnan Garu, thank you very much for taking out time and joining all the way from Bombay on this panel. But that's what is the advantage that this pandemic has brought about. People from across the globe can converge together. Abhilash, thank you for joining, and you are also from Mumbai, so thanks. Moving on to Sridhar Garu, Thank you very much for bringing in the perspectives that you did, Satish Garu. Thank you very much. I think, and of course, last but not the least, Praveen Garu, and being from Government of Telangana, I think instrumental in ensuring that a lot of more large financial institutions set up their base here in Hyderabad, thus creating opportunities for all our young friends over here. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was wonderful having this discussion with you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, esteemed panelists, for the wonderful discussion. There's been a lot of positive response from the audience as well. I think Shrikant sir has pretty well summed up whatever the discussion was. I think one thing that actually came out was the BFSI sector going forward is looking at big time digitization. There's going to be a lot of technology integration, automation. So these are the skills that the students should look at, whether you're from a commerce background or finance background. That doesn't give you the advantage of not being digitally literate or not being comfortable with technology. I think technology is a done thing, and we should all keep focusing on that. And that is, I think, one message. Opportunities are definitely available, but for students who make themselves relevant, if I may repeat what Mr. Muralidharan had said. Thank you so much. Very, very enlightening discussion. A lot of value added to the students. Coming up next week in our series of webinars is Retail and Marketing Next. We are doing a webinar on what are the expectations of retail and marketing sector and how students can prepare themselves for that. So we look forward to seeing you next week, all the students, principals, faculty. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.